Hi, I'm John Sarakis, and you're either watching or listening to The Climb. The Climb is brought to you by the Digital Mastermind. The Digital Mastermind is a group of agency owners, technologists, and marketers. We share all the latest tips, tricks, tools, strategies to help one another grow. And today, we have a very special podcast. Today, we interviewed a longtime DMG member. Her name is Lorraine Ball. I met her back in 2012, same time I met my co-host, Dave, who will be out here in 1 second. Fantastic lady. She's had a storied career working for a large company in the marketing department internally, as well as in deciding to start an internal agency in her firm, which she gets into, and then breaking that into her own external agency. So if you would like to have a story like Lorraine's, then it takes peer-to-peer, right? So go ahead and shoot me an email, Jon, Jon, @digitalmastermind.com, if you would be interested in joining our tribe. All right, before we get into anything else, Dave, why don't you come on out?
Hey, how's it going?
Good to see you. I love the beard.
Arr, get the pirate on. Getting ready for Halloween.
Oh, all right on, man. And we got a big party coming up on Friday this week. We're taking out the whole team on a boat, a catamaran.
Gonna be on a boat. Did you see my teaser video that I posted to the team channel?
I did. Yeah, that's how I know it's a cat. Yeah, I wouldn't have known otherwise. It's a good looking boat.
It is. It's really nice. I'm really excited about it. It's gonna be a good time. But it's time for our summer party. We try to do this every summer, and last year it got COVIDed, so this year we're good to go.
Good to go. Saved up some money to have extra good time with some of our fantastic team members. All right. So Lorraine, we met her, I believe it was 2012, right? That's around when we met her.
First year of DMG, whatever the first year I attended.
Yeah, she always had. So this is it kind of sounds like our buzzwords, but some of the best bar camps I remember. Yeah, she had a fantastic one I remember on interns that was really educational. A lot of people just thought they could keep the same model where they just would bring them in, they would do all the free work. She provided a ton of info explaining the educational standpoint and the risk of lawsuits, which then it seemed like there was a wave right after that.
So I wish we would have asked on the interview if that I think that was her second year. I think she had been in the DMG the year prior, because she came in with her bar camps and was smooth, confident, ready to go. Like she was just, that was my takeaway. I was like, whoa, I am not prepared to do a bar camp like that. And that was my first year going to DMG. I didn't even know what a bar camp was. And for our audience, a bar camp's a little 15-minute presentation of something you're an expert on. And she crushed them. That was definitely a takeaway from the first DMG.
Yeah, that's a good
gold nugget, as one would say.
Yeah, Jeff Klein, OG Jeff Klein. Yeah, she set the bar pretty high for those. But I think this was a fantastic episode because she talked about merging, and that's something that you and I, of course, have had guests on, and we've talked a lot about. And she had different options, and I like the way that she weighed out those options of what is important to her. And I think too many people don't go through that decision process, really figuring out, how do I want to exit? And on account of that, man, we've known there's some people, I don't believe they even mentioned it on the podcast, where they've left millions of dollars on the table because they stayed on, or they were supposed to stay on, and they just couldn't take what it was turning into.
I bet you every business owner that gets past 500,000, and you start entertaining the idea of selling. But I think probably so many people get bad offers that they never even seriously consider them. And Lorraine had two good ones, but then the one was had a stipulation that she didn't want to continue with, so she bypassed it. So good for her, knowing what she wanted. And a lot of people don't know what they want out of selling their business, so they end up not doing it. So
I think that's an important thing. A lot of people don't even realize what it is that they want. They're too distant from what it is that they value.
And there's some FOMO, right? What about if you sell and then all of a sudden that skyrockets to a 10x? Wouldn't you just be like, son of a bitch?
Well, I think it just depends, right? So I think if it's one of those situations where somebody brought in their relationships, their systems, and something, all right, I think that's a completely different story. But if you're in the wood selling business and then you sell your wood selling brokerage before like COVID happens, and then it just goes up, that's where I think it's
right.
Yeah.
So interestingly enough, I had a conversation this week with a good friend of mine that is in the business broker business, and we were talking about how we're seeing so many opportunities in the firearms category, and I was like, yeah, I could see why, because and he was saying how so many people are selling right now because buyers are buying up businesses. And I was talking to him about like, why is that? He's like, well, there's inflation, there's money, there's no where else can you park your money, as a solid investment. So they're buying up businesses left and right. And right now the valuations are so high and the money is so easy with interest rates and everything that he's like, we're seeing so many deals. And I was like, yeah, but once you sell and you move to cash with the inflation, your money's just going to devalue from day one after you sold. So what do you fold that money into? Why would you sell?
Right. It's like getting taxed after your 401k. Like, oh,
Right.
hey, it's a tax shelter now. It's like, yeah, what are the tax rates going to be in 30 years when you cash that thing out?
I can't believe people don't consider that. I have a 401k, but it's not my primary. But that's what I tell people. I'm like, you are going to be your most wealthiest by the time you start taking this money out, which means you'll be in the top tax bracket.
Yeah.
You're putting in money pre-tax when your tax rate is the lowest, only to take it out when your tax rate is the highest. Like, how do people not notice that?
I don't know. I just think it's just, like I said, it's one of those decision processes where they just go in. The movement is for everybody to do something, so they just proceed with that, and they don't look at, hey, they just think it's just ignorance. They think right now it's a tax shelter, not realizing that, well, no, there's a catch to that. There's another side to that coin. I was having a conversation with an agency owner the other day that he was talking about, I mean, speaking of guns, like they don't take on any gun accounts, they don't take on any tobacco accounts, or and so on and so forth. And then he names a big candy brand. I said, dude, do you know what sugar does to people? Like, I mean, you're talking about these others, which just everybody is like, okay, yeah, for sure. Like those kill people, right? But how many people are dying of diabetes or sugar related diseases? And he, to his credit, said, oh, I didn't even look at it that way. It's like, yeah.
I mean, if you're going to take that stance, everything kills everyone. I mean, what are you not working with auto manufacturers? They're like the number 2 leading cause of deaths, in America. Are you not? Well, who can you work with?
Right. And I just think it's that perspective, right? It's, I looked at it, it means very well. It was what's popular right now. You can say these things and whatnot. I'm not advocating, to shoot anybody with a gun. I'm not advocating for anybody to start smoking, but remember, kids, it's never too late to start. Right. But at the end of the day, he didn't look at it from that angle. Just like, okay, yeah, everybody else is this type of thinking, and I just haven't dipped my perspective into that direction. And I don't know. Hopefully it's some good. And that's the power of hey, going back to the peer-to-peer, that's the power of having conversations with other people that you might think are your competitors, where they're going to be able to show you some of those blind spots and shine a light on them. Sure.
100%. I just don't think there's not many industries I would turn away. I don't know.
I'm trying to think. We've done them all. We've done religion. We've done guns. We've done tobacco. We've done.
Have we done tobacco?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we have.
Yeah. It's through another agency. We can't name it, but yeah. So, and I don't think it's just, these are things that people do. It's just,
way back in the day, we worked with an adult toy manufacturer, and during my interview process, I had to mention that they might be exposed to this project, and people mostly fine with it. But a hilarious story that I'll have to share with everybody is that through testing, one of our employees, our longest termed employee, Daniel, had to fill out forms and test stuff, and then we did that. We got it working, and everything went to production. And 3 months later, we get a catalog in the mail to the office addressed to Daniel for banana hammocks. We laughed at that so hard for so long. That was hilarious. But that was just because, he fell into the capture form by testing it. And so they started mailing him catalogs. So it was awesome.
Right on. Good on him. I love this because now we have to segue this into
acquisitions.
Yeah. But fantastic episode with Lorraine. I think, some of the big takeaways for any of the listeners here are this she's been a member of DMG since the beginning. Fantastic what peer-to-peer has done. I think she would speak highly of that. She's got her own podcast too, which I want to give her a plug, which she plugs in there as well. And I think if you take a lot of the same approaches as Lorraine, she's a very direct person, but she has a polish and a way of communicating.
Well,
you can be successful in almost anything you do.
The thing that I take away from Lorraine is that her positioning or her brand is so about the communication and the content. It was always on a level way more than, like she, to me, embraced the idea of inbound marketing probably better than anyone else expressed it to me. Like, that's what I took away when I got to listen to her at the bar camps in DMG, is like, she was, she knew how to inbound it. So,
yeah. Well, I think you hit on another head there. She's just a fantastic communicator.
Yeah.
So whether that was through her work or just in person. So here is Lorraine Ball, a fantastic communicator. So please go ahead and like, share, comment, do what you will with the podcast. We appreciate anything, any engagement, reviews, and tell somebody else about it. And if you would like to join the DMG, go ahead and shoot me an email, Jon, Jon at digitalmastermind.com. Thank you so much, everybody. Enjoy. Hi, Lorraine. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, it's good to be here.
Good to see you. All right. So I would like to start with, what is your climb? How did you get here?
Well, I would love to tell you it was a straight path. It wasn't. I started my life as a school teacher. I worked in retail. I went back to school. I got a graduate degree, and I started a corporate career. I thought I had it made. I was a marketing person. I loved marketing, and I was in corporate. And I was listening to this radio interview, because they didn't do podcasts back then. And it was a discussion of a book by Peter Drucker. And in it, they talked about the fact that corporations needed to hire crazy people, not just people with interesting resumes, but really people that were kind of out there. I go running down the hall, talk to my boss, and I'm like, listen to this. We need to do this. And he looks across the table and he says, why do you think we hired you? Okay, I know my role. The problem was I was so excited about the interview, I never listened to the second part. I never finished the book, in which Peter Drucker goes on to say that corporations hire crazy people, but sooner or later, they start to try to cut the corners off of those people to get them to fit into these neat little corporate holes. Mm. And so when I finally came to understand that, I decided it was time to leave. It was time to leave my comfy office and big budget in a corporate world and go somewhere that I fit, which is why my agency was called Round Peg.
I love that. Most companies don't have a great story behind them.
So that's the other thing, is I am a storyteller. So that's kind of how I morphed into becoming a content person, but I love a good story. So yeah. But yes.
How long before you read the second part of the book? Like, what was the gap there?
Years. I spent I don't know, 15, 17 years in corporate, climbed the corporate ladder, got all the way to the VP office, was really excited, had a big team, everything I ever wanted. And I looked around and went, I don't want this. I just don't. Corporations, and most of my corporate experience was in big companies, and they move very slowly.
Yeah.
And they very often, and particularly the last company I was with, make decisions that are in the best interest of the management, but not necessarily the best interest of the business at large sometimes. And there was a lot of, the politics in Washington is nothing compared to some of the stuff I saw in corporate, and it was that frustration that made me go, this is crazy. I know that I can make a difference. I know that if I can move quickly, which corporations couldn't do, and I could be entrepreneurial, that I could really have some fun. And I actually had a chance before I left corporate to prove that. The company that I mentioned that had all the politics was also sliding into bankruptcy. And they wanted me to cut my team. And I proposed, instead of cutting my creative team, I said, let me sell our services to the outside world. I had designers, I had writers, I had editors. And so we did. And we did projects for the zoo and the local paper. And we really did some great work. Inside this larger corporation, we turned a profit. We were actually covering our expenses and we were bringing money back to this corporation. Now, it was a drop in the bucket compared to what they needed, but it was proof of concept. I've always
been. When you did that you were going to eventually No.
I just was really looking for a creative way to save and protect my people, to take care of my team, because I thought we would come out the other end. And I thought I had worked really hard to hire this awesome team, and I didn't want to lose any of these people. And so for me, this was a creative way to keep my team intact, cover our cost. And also what I learned was it gave my team a lot of creative inspiration, because there are only so many different ways you can do a brochure about the same product.
Oh yeah. You can just beat people down with boredom.
Yeah. And so to be able to go to my writers and my designers and go, okay, we have a new client and it has nothing to do with what we do. The level of excitement, the creativity that it unleashed was just that in and of itself was worth it. And then on top of it, we actually made some money. And there was, after doing that for a period of time, was when I really had the realization that it wasn't appreciated by the corporation. We were being constrained by the requirements of the company, and they were going to go where they were going to go, and I needed to go where I needed to go. And so that was when I decided to start the business.
Were you able to take that team with you?
No, I actually, at that point, because I didn't, when a corporation goes through that kind of pain and people have the chance that they're actually going to lose their jobs, one of the things that really begins to wear on you is the fact that I recruited these people. I brought these people in, and it was a huge team. And a lot of these people were folks I had known before, and I felt responsible. And so I spent several months making sure they all found new jobs and got placed before I took my last step. But I didn't sleep for about 4 months. And when I first started the agency, I wasn't going to have employees. I did not want that responsibility again. I never wanted to be in that position again. And so the fact that I ultimately grew my new agency to 9 people tells you, how long that lasted. But in that first 2 years after I was out of corporate, I wanted to be a solopreneur. I wanted to be in control of my own destiny. I wanted to take projects or not take projects based on just what I wanted to do. And that was fine. But there was a moment when I had been reaching out to freelancers. I can do a lot of the work myself, but I was reaching out to people to fill in the gaps. And one of the people I had turned to for a design project did not execute the project the way I had envisioned it. And that was when I really started realizing I needed to bring some of that back in-house. Also, I was growing, and there was the high-level work and there was the administrative work. And so I started hiring out some of that, where I brought in someone to do administration, and then I brought in someone to do some of the simple copywriting, and then I brought in someone to do design work. And in each instance, and this has been my pattern all along, I've hired people who are better at each of those individual things because at my core, I'm a marketer. I'm a strategist. I'm a production artist. I'm not a graphic designer. And so being able to hire someone who could do that really amazing design that I could see in my head, but I somehow could not get to show up on paper was a good choice.
So it sounds like you organically got into that place, but what are some of the good things maybe that you took from corporate, if any?
So some of the things that I took from corporate, the single biggest was kind of my project organization system. When I was in corporate, on any given day, my team, at its height, there were 48 people on my team, which was ridiculous for a marketing department inside a corporation, which might tell you why they slid into bankruptcy. But okay. Yeah, there was a lot going on there. But we had just a ton of projects. On any given day, there might be 300 projects. And my senior designer had developed a numbering system that allowed us in this database. On any day, I could go in and I could type in the name of the brochure, the product, and up would come, because we also were dealing with state variations on the literature. Here are all the products attached to it. Here's the one for New Jersey. Here's the one for New York. Here's this. And there was a number. And that with that number, I could find all the print files. I could find, in those days, all the physical documentation. And I took that numbering system with me. And I mean, I did it in a simple Excel spreadsheet. I didn't use the multi-layer database that we were using. But that numbering system, that way of organizing information has allowed me, I was in business 19 years, and any customer that I did business with at any time in the 19 years could call me today and say, Lorraine, I don't know if you remember, but 11 years ago, you did a brochure for me. Oh, yeah, project number 275. Great, hold on just a sec. Okay, I've got the file. What do you need?
Your own Dewey Decimal System.
So, and I would never, I mean, had I not had that experience, I would never have known to organize it that way. Today, a lot of our files are stored on Google Drive. And so you don't need, the search capability is so much better. But when I was starting out and you were organizing files in Microsoft Explorer, on your desktop or file manager, you had to have a system because otherwise it would just get completely out of control.
Oh yeah. I've seen some nightmares working with some agencies where it's like, I'm shocked you guys even get anything done or find anything. Like, this is terrible. This is like a little kid's room.
Yeah. So I think that was one of the big things. The other thing I learned over the years in corporate, I took a lot of classes on leadership and building high performance teams. And I took the best of what worked with me into corporate, out of corporate and into my agency. And one of the things that I always did when I was in corporate is I'd always had a lot of interns. And when it was time for the next semester, I always brought the interns with me so they could sit on the other side of the table and see what an interview was like. And I continued that when I started bringing people on, I always had the rest of the team sit in on the interviews. And when you think about from a productivity standpoint, it's expensive to put 7 people in a room. But we made really good hires because every one of those people had learned over time to listen to the interview, to ask the questions, and they knew the warning signs because we'd made a few mistakes along the way. But the last few years, we just had great hires and a killer team because the decision wasn't resting on just me. I was listening to input from everybody who was going to work with the person we were hiring.
So you had like an open floor plan where everybody was listening to one person get interviewed?
Oh, hell, not worse than that. They'd all come in the conference room. We'd sit down. And if you couldn't keep, this was the really interesting thing. If you couldn't, I mean, we warned people. We're like, look, it's going to be a group conversation. So just be prepared for a little bit of chaos. 8 people, 2 cats. Let's have a conversation. And sometimes somebody would say something and it would spur a conversation, and 2 people would start talking to each other, and the candidate would be sitting there a little puzzled.
Mm-hmm.
If they couldn't keep up in the interview, they weren't going to keep up day to day.
So I think it's it, because I heard Amazon does some kind of team interviewing process as well. And I haven't looked at it this way before, but you potentially bring out 2 huge fears in somebody: social anxiety, there's this whole room, and then being interviewed for a job.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. I mean, and we try to be as gentle as we can, and we try to make them comfortable. We're pretty, we were always really laid back and stuff. But yeah, we had, I had one poor woman, you could see the stress. Literally, she was turning red up the side of her neck. And I kicked everybody else out of the room. And I'm like, this is really stressing you out, isn't it? And she was like, oh yeah. And I'm like, okay, great.
Yeah,
let's talk about
bulging,
she was turning like 3 shades of red. I mean, it was visible. And I'm like, okay, I don't think this environment is going to be good for you.
It sounds like a liability.
Mm-hmm.
So what was the type of work that you predominantly did? And then I want to talk about your agency sale and what got you there.
So at our heart, we were a marketing company that did web design. We were not a web design company. What's the difference? The average customer might not necessarily recognize the difference. But for us, what that meant was we started with the customer, we started with marketing, we built a website to achieve those objectives, but we also did only certain types of web design. We didn't get into, we didn't get into Ruby on Rails. We didn't get into a lot of the heavy coding. We became a WordPress shop because it was easy for us and easy for our clients. If somebody came to me and they knew that the website was a marketing extension of their business, they were a good customer for us. If someone came to me with an idea that their entire business was going to revolve around the web, not just revolve around the website, run through the website, heavy e-commerce, lots of integration and application, we would introduce them to one of our referral partners. That wasn't where we wanted to play. And so getting really clear on that actually helped us do more of the kind of work we wanted to do and do really good work for that community. The other thing that we did that really became a core of ours, we started ghost blogging quite by accident in 2008.
Yeah, earlier than most.
And what we learned about it and what we saw happening when a lot of agencies were getting very heavy into black hat SEO and very, very technical SEO was that our clients, their websites were doing well in organic search because we knew how to create content. Mm-hmm. Fast forward 19 years or 10 years, whatever, to get to today, that's still the cornerstone. I understand a lot more about SEO now than I did back then. I understand a lot more about SEO than I ever want to understand. But we still ground everything in content first. And I actually am getting ready to roll out a class that's just called Content-Based SEO. And it's for business owners, and it's introduction to SEO, and we're not even going to mention the word meta tag anywhere in the course. It's really just about search intent and power words and creating content that makes people happy, which in turn will make search engines happy.
Yeah, you're definitely ahead of the curve there. I know a lot of people would just fall down the keyword stuffing, technical process. And sure, at some point, it took a lot for you to say, like, no, let's just stick to our guns and flawlessly execute the basic principle. It's just content.
Yeah. Well, and I have to admit, there were a lot of people, and Indy is a great digital community. There are a lot of wonderful agencies. We all know each other.
Indiana is what you're referring to.
Indianapolis,
Yeah. Oh, okay, got it.
even smaller, and we all know each other. And it's so funny because many of my peers are like, Lorraine, you're crazy. You're missing all these opportunities. And I kept going, and then Google changed their algorithm.
For the better. Yeah.
And some of my friends made the switch, and there was one company that had totally built their entire business just on link building.
Oh, yeah.
That's all it was, which was a thing.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't. And then they didn't have a company because they did not know how to create content.
Yeah, link farmers. Dave, when you first started, did you dabble in SEO at all?
Not at all. It's always been a complete black box for me. I don't want to understand it. I don't like the fact that it's all reliant on another company's attitude of the season. I mean, they get to change the whole environment with one decision, and that's not something I want to base my business on.
No, I agree. That's why I tell clients, Facebook, LinkedIn, all of that stuff is like going to a singles bar. Okay, you're gonna meet some nice people, but your end game is to bring your date home.
You bet it is.
And home is your website. It is the place you control the message. It's so, like when you said you don't want to depend on, I have a love-hate relationship with Facebook. I mean, it's great, but if it disappears tomorrow, I'm still going to be in business.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in some respects, we did a ton of SEO. So we were constantly at that behest. So I probably have more, I probably lost 10 years of my life when they would change their algorithm. We would chase it. We'd get amazing results. People would call like, oh my God, we're taking you out to dinner. This is amazing. 2 weeks later, they call like, we hate you guys. What's going on? Like,
At this point, I almost feel like the algorithm change needs to be like submitted to Congress and reviewed. Because I think, what was it? It was in April. We had 3 algorithm changes.
Oh, yeah. They're still rolling out one right now. Yeah.
Yeah. The Google page experience that they're rolling out, that's going to really focus on, see, I'm geeking out now. But it's really going to focus on kind of speed and kind of how fast your content serves up, and how does it work on mobile, and are you creating a good experience?
I mean, on one hand, they're keeping us employed, right? I mean, every time they make a change, that's more work we get to do. But I mean, because they get to make that decision, it has such a dramatic impact across so many businesses across the world that I just don't think they should be allowed to change it at will whenever they want.
They're roads, right? And they literally just can shut down or slow the traffic down to your business.
Well, it was probably 5 or 6 years ago, Facebook did that. There was a moment where an average post for most of my customers, maybe they were getting 200 or 300 views, and overnight it dropped to 30. They just changed how it worked. And we were like, and you're like, okay, so we're going to have to readjust.
We've seen that, and that's them turning into that pay-per-play game. It just, and that's the thing about marketing. It just keeps getting difficult, and it keeps twisting and turning, and you got to innovate. You have something you think you understand, and then somebody else is doing something different. Are those maybe some of the reasons that led you to decide to sell?
Actually, no. I actually
missed the mark entirely. I love it.
Yeah, no, I don't mind the change. I kind of get bored when things stay the same for too long. It really, and that's really more the thing, is I've done this for 19 years, which is a long time.
Yeah.
And I had an opportunity. Somebody came to me and said, hey, would you be interested? And I'm like, maybe. let's talk about it. And it was funny because the first time somebody reached out to me, it was almost 6 years ago. And so I had the conversation and I kind of looked into it and talked to some people about sort of what was reasonable, what should my agency be worth. They actually came up with a reasonable price and we went back and forth. And the deal fell apart over something that some people may think was silly, but wasn't for me. I realized I didn't like them.
That's important.
And you're like, well, you're selling the business. What do you care? And I'm like, yeah, but these are my customers. These are my employees. This is my second family. And so it was a deal breaker. And
what was it exactly, if you can share? Like,
I found that as we were talking about our agency, and they were more of a traditional agency. They weren't really a digital agency. And so on the one hand, they were buying us because they wanted a footprint in Indianapolis and to expand their digital presence. But they had hired somebody who'd had a whole year of digital marketing. Yeah. And he was going to run the agency.
Real veteran.
Experienced. And, I would politely go like, well, I was looking at your website and, your page isn't optimized correctly. And I'd point things out and it was like, I wasn't even talking. And I'm like, no, because number one, you really don't know what you're doing. So I'm trying to find, if I'm stumbling, it's because I'm originally from New York and I have a colorful vocabulary. And
you can say whatever you want, Lorraine.
Oh, no, you don't want me saying this. So I'm sort of censoring just a little bit because some of the things I was like, no, we're done. Yeah. So that was part of it. And then the other part of it is the more I talked to him, the more I realized they weren't really interested in our business per se. They were interested in taking their business model and overlaying it in our company. And it just wasn't, it just didn't feel right. It wasn't what I wanted to do. And the other thing, they wanted me to stay on full time for 3 years.
Oh, yeah.
No. And that piece of it, my husband said something to me that really made a lot of sense. He said, you left corporate because you didn't want to do things other people's ways. You wanted to do it your way. And you're signing up to spend the last 3 years of your career working for somebody else. And I went, no. So it was a really good experience because then over the next couple of years, again, I was not looking for it. But people would pop up and go, hey, would you be interested? So I knew some of the questions to ask. So 18 months ago, a company out of Michigan reached out. We had a conversation. I liked Aaron. He and I are personality-wise very similar. I probably have a little bit more of a soft side than he does, but we process information the same way. We're both on the Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Edison spectrum, where Ben Franklin is out there with all these weird ideas and Thomas Edison is slowly perfecting. We're both Benjamin Franklins. And so, we manage very similarly. So we had a really good connection. And then the pandemic hit. And both of us are kind of like, let's sort of slow down. Let's stay in touch. Let's have conversations. And we chatted on and off for a year, which was great because it gave us a chance to get to know each other, learn a little bit about how each other's companies operated, and kind of get ready for, okay, we think this could work.
Right on.
Yeah.
And was there a huge price difference between the company that wanted you to wait? No, really? That's fantastic. That's a win.
No,
it's a huge win.
Yeah. No, the thing that actually 2019 was the best year my agency ever had. And had I sold on December 31st or January 1, I probably would have made more money. because when you sell, you take a look at like a 3-year average.
Mm-hmm.
2020 was not a great year. It screwed up my average. I did get some other, I mean, there were some other things that happened, but that was the reality. So if I wanted to get past 2020 messing up my 3-year average, I'd have had to wait 3 more years. And by that point, I had emotionally kind of gotten to the place where I'm like, no, this is the right time to do it. It's the right company. And so the offer was good. But you need to be prepared that if you're going to sell your agency, you got to put together 3 good years. I had 1 spectacular and 2 good, as opposed to, 1 good and 2 spectacular. And we were, this is the reality of our agencies. We were teed up. 2020 was going to be kick ass. But we had we had a theater, we had a winery, we had a school, in our mix. Now, fortunately, we had an IT security company that specialized in setting up remote work environments.
There you go.
So there were some lights at the end of the tunnel,
Yeah.
and then there were, the heating and air conditioning company and the plumber and the lawyer, and those, fortunately, another lesson: diversity in your customer mix.
So it sounds like you had like a bell curve when you sold. Now the whole selling process though, like what was that emotionally? This is like a child that's now 19 years old. They're going off to college.
I think you have to get to that moment when you are thinking about selling your business, where you have to start. Well, you probably need to do it sooner. You need to separate who you are from your business. You need to think about your business as an asset and not an extension of you. Because when you think about it as an asset, you can be objective about the value, and you can negotiate from a position not of, but I put my heart and soul into it, because quite honestly, the person who's buying it from you does not care. They don't. Lorraine, that's really nice. How much are we going to make? What's the return going to be? Well, the return is this, but you'll find it so satisfying. No, so you have to separate. So that was in the 5 years between the first and offer and the one that I ultimately took. I gradually went through that process where I separated that out, where I really began to think about my business as just that. It's an asset. I loved it. I had a lot of fun. I love the people, and I'm excited because I can see some really cool opportunities for them in this transition. The company that acquired us is bigger, and they have visions of being even bigger. So there's upward potential where Roundpeg couldn't offer that. People were going to hit a ceiling with us. And when they did, they had to move on because there wasn't anything that could keep them. And we were lucky. We had people that stayed 5, 6, 7 years and really grew up with us. But there was always that moment where they're like, okay, I want to do something else. I want to do more than this. And like, yeah, great.
How did you sell it to your team? Because that's always an interesting. Did you tell them ahead of time?
This was, and actually I can understand why Aaron wanted to do it. We actually told my team when I signed the letter of intent, not the final contract. So that was actually maybe 2 months before the sale. And I told them what I was going to do. We then did a bunch of calls with the Dexia team, and they started sitting in on some of our meetings. And then actually before we closed, the Dexia team also wanted to talk to some of our clients. That was the thing that was a little bit scary for about a nanosecond. But then I realized, my relationship with these clients was good enough that they trusted me. We've kept all of our clients in the transition. I take it back. I had one client we didn't keep, and it had nothing to do with us. It had to do with the fact that he hired an internal marketing person, so he didn't need the external agency support anymore. She was going to do what we were doing. That would have happened regardless. But all my other clients, I had a conversation with them first, then we had a 3-way conversation with Aaron, and it was really good because it helped them get comfortable. It helped them voice whatever concerns they had. And it worked because I'm not the only one who had the relationship with the client.
Yeah.
That.
Wow, they had conversations before. That's kind of terrifying in some respects.
Yeah. Yeah. But
you had the letter of intent. So is there any protections in there? Like,
oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We had letter of intent. We had non-disclosure. Maybe I'm arrogant, possibly. I really wasn't afraid of them stealing my clients.
I don't even know if it's the stealing. I think it's almost the spooking of the clients that scares me, right? Because then like they leave, deal falls through, that kind of scenario.
Yeah, I think part of it is I made a decision to run a very personal business. Okay. I'm on a hugging basis with most of my clients who are local. Okay. So it was more like, it still is business at the end of the day, but it was more like, Lorraine, this is really cool. Are you excited about this? Yes, I really am. And I think maybe I said things like, there's always a possibility that this whole thing could blow up and then you're going to be stuck with me. And because that's my style, I could sort of present it that way.
Yeah, just very genuine.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. They want to make sure that the business I'm selling them is going to be worth something. And they want to get to know you and give you a chance to get to know them. But the other side of it is, but you know what? I don't really do any work on your account, right? You know that it's Britt who does the web. And Sam's the one that really gets everything done. And Britt and Sam are still on board. So that's helped a lot.
Right. And that's smart way to pitch it. Dave, we just sent a letter after the fact, right? To all of our clients after we merged. I don't remember.
No, I think you went on a pretty good campaign of talking to him one-on-one before it happened.
That's right. I did. Yeah. I went through. I remember talking to him, and I think it was a similar pitch that you gave, Lorraine, where I went through, and then I think we sent out like an official letter. So
yeah, we did an official letter, but well, actually, it's kind of funny. I'll talk about the official letter in a minute. But you guys merged, and you're both still active in the business.
Correct.
And that's the intention, is that you're going to continue to both be active. So it really was a true merger and not an acquisition.
Right. So we're building an empire brick by brick.
Absolutely. And so the difference is you each are bringing your customers to the mix, and there's less concern that the customers are going to disappear when one or the other of you disappears.
Right.
So I think that was really their concern.
Yeah. The big pitch was like, hey, now we've got all these other services you can take advantage of, because Jon really focused on the marketing and the digital onboarding side, and I was more the dev and tech side. So really, I mean, I don't think, did we lose a customer? I don't think we did.
No, we didn't lose.
No. Yeah, I mean, because the story you were able to tell was you'll have access to more. And actually, from our perspective, we could do the same thing, because my clients knew I don't like pay-per-click. I don't like Google AdWords. But you know what? We're going to have that in-house now. I like video, but it's not something that we're really good at. But Dexia is. And so that really helped. But as far as we positioned it in the marketplace. The way we wrote the press release and sent the general communication, a lot of our customers weren't sure whether we merged or were acquired, and that was okay. We actually wanted to maintain the Round Peg brand. There's 19 years, we have some value in the market. We have some strong identity. And so even now, 6 months later, people will be like, so did you sell? Are you merged? What are you really doing? And, and I'll tell them one-on-one, we didn't do it to deceive. We just didn't really want to shake up the marketplace and get them uncomfortable that Round Peg wasn't going to be Round Peg anymore. Because, again, we've got a lot of relationships in the community. We have customers and referral partners, and we wanted them to continue to feel comfortable working with us.
Is there a plan to divest them, that brand at some point?
I think over the long run, Dexia would love to have the Dexia name be dominant. I think the next step is going to be on the Round Peg website. We have a page about Dexia, but I think making it more prominent. I think one of the challenges that they have as they try to kind of wind that down is digitally, we have a lot of authority.
Yeah.
We have 19 years of inbound links. We have over 4,500 blog posts that we've written over the years that are all indexed and linked and connected. And so we have quite a footprint. The Round Peg Twitter account has 8,000 followers. The Round Peg Facebook page has a sizable community. So I think
lots of digital assets.
Yeah. So I think that's part of the value. So I think they're going to try to transition over time. I think 5 years from now, though it hurts my heart, but I think 5 years from now, the Round Peg brand probably won't exist. Yeah. It's sad, but without me, is it really a Round Peg?
Only time will tell.
Mm-hmm.
So where does one, after having an agency for 19 years, now spend their time after they sold it?
So in a way, I've kind of gone back to my roots. When I started the company, I wanted to do a lot of training and presentations because that's something I'm good at. And so over the years at Round Peg, I had developed a lot of training programs that were designed to help small businesses get ready to use the tools or get ready to work with an agency. And I also created a podcast. So as I was getting ready to sell, I actually set up a separate corporation. And I think this was one of my favorite smart moves. I set up a separate corporation so I could move the training business and the podcast. And those are assets of the digital toolbox. They are not assets of Round Peg. So when I sold Round Peg, it didn't make any sense to sell the training material or the podcast because neither of those really existed without me. So separating those assets worked really well. And so now I'm doing some online training, and I'm actually going to get back out on the road. This is kind of fun. I'm going to be in New England later this year, and I got a connection to someone who is with the Chamber of Commerce in some little city in New Hampshire. And I'm going to be there for a couple of days, and I'm going to do a presentation to the Chamber of Commerce there. Pick up a few pennies, maybe get some subscribers to the toolbox, and get on with my trip. So that's what you do when you sell an agency.
So hitting the road.
Yeah. And also after being home for a year and a half, it'll be nice to get back out. I'm not quite ready to fly yet, but getting in the car, traveling, and going to the Northeast where it seems pretty sensible, I think it'll be fun.
Right on. I love that. Yeah. And where a couple last questions as we start summing up. Where do you think agencies are going wrong or today?
I think that they're going too far down the artificial intelligence and automated path. Now, don't get me wrong. I love AI. I love, first level chats and things like that. But I see too many agencies that are relying on those tools and losing the personal touch, losing that, kind of getting into these formulas and paying so much attention to the numbers. Kind of goes back to my roots. They're not writing personal content. They're writing superficial, generic, keyword-rich content. And they're missing the opportunity to do unique because it takes more time. And I think you can charge more for that. I think that level of personalization and that real customer intimacy is something that I think is missing in a lot of agencies.
That nuance.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. And then is there anything we haven't covered today that the world should know?
Yeah. Nobody will die from lack of marketing. So, if you're running an agency and you're staying up late and you're stressing about it, just step back and realize that the world is going to continue. It's going to be okay. And you can get some sleep and deal with it tomorrow.
Oh, I love that. I used to tell the team all the time, like, guys, we're not saving lives. Just let's take it easy. Let's just take a breath. Everything's going to be all right. And how can people get a hold of you?
Well, if they just want to listen to me talk, they can look for More Than a Few Words wherever they listen to podcasts, iTunes, Spotify. And they can also go to the Digital Toolbox at digitaltoolbox.club and drop me a note. And of course, Lorraine Ball is on every social platform you can find me.
Perfect. Awesome. Lorraine, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. This was so much fun.
Hope you enjoyed our episode. Please subscribe and review wherever you can. And if you would like to join the Digital Mastermind, go ahead and shoot me an email at jon@digitalmastermind.com or visit us at digitalmastermind.com. We'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye now.